What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tailor Talk Celtics. Today, I'm joined by Richard White. Everybody knows Richard White, super vocal on social media, excellent follow over on Blue Sky. He kind of joined that Twitter exodus a while back. For anyone that don't know him, Derrick White's father. Richard, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing well. How you doing?
So,
Thanks for having me, Adam.
oh man, it's my pleasure. I've been waiting for us to kind of sync up for an opportunity to have this discussion. It's just under really bad circumstances, right? Like, I was hoping that when we were speaking, the Celtics would have tied the series to 2-2. We were hoping that we'd be looking at a potential kind of comeback and they move on to the NBA Finals. And it could still happen. Like, no, it's far too early to be writing this team off. But at the same time, things aren't looking great right now. And from your perspective, do you feel like there's enough reason to still be confident coming into Game 5? Or are you already of the mindset that we should start looking forward to the summer?
I mean, even before the series started, it's like it's the first to four, and like you said on social media, after every loss, everybody goes crazy, and I'd say you should never really panic or have any concern until the other team has three, because then the next game could be your last game. As long as there's still a guarantee that there's a next game, then I don't worry or have any concern. I mean, I still believe in the team because as we've seen when they move the ball around and everybody gets touches and it forces the defense to shift. They're very good. They've had a double digit lead in almost every game. When they stop moving the ball for whatever reason, then the Knicks go on a run. So it's all predicated on their selves. If they play the correct in the right way, they can make shots, which feeds into the defense, which then feeds into transition. So all things start to work as everything starts to work together. When one of the pieces doesn't work, then it kind of gets clunky, and then the clunkiness kind of perpetuates. So I mean, I don't have any miracle, snap a finger and say this is it. I mean, but basically, when you see them move the ball around, they get open shots and they knock them down, and then that translates back onto the defensive end, which you would hope that wouldn't be the case, but that usually is. When teams don't score, their defense tends to suffer, which kind of what New York had that too. When they weren't scoring, then
Yeah.
the Celtics went on a run. So whoever is scoring, as long as you're scoring, you're okay. But if you miss two or three shots in a row, then the other team grabs the bit and runs with it.
How do you feel about the idea? And this has definitely been an issue for pretty much the entire Joe Mazzulla era, where you don't just have one guy go cold. It's either everybody's cold or everybody's smoking hot. There's never seems to be this in between where everybody's like, you've got some guys that are having a good night and some guys that are struggling, which is what you would expect across the course of a season. But it definitely feels, at least it does to me, when the Celtics are having a bad night from deep, which is completely, that's the way that 3 point variance works. Is sometimes it's your night and sometimes it's not, and you're betting on it being your night more frequently than it's not. But it does feel like to me, it's like it's a catching cold. One guy goes cold, and then it just spreads like wildfire throughout the roster.
Yeah, the main thing goes back to the thing about the ball movement. The ones where we have really bad instances where you don't shoot, the ball doesn't move, it doesn't, you don't get a lot of shots. You can tell when the Celtics are doing very well. Al Horford's getting six wide open shots. He's going to make between three and four. Sam, same difference. Peyton comes back in. He's a wild card. He can knock down shots. When the ball is moving, then Derek gets open shots, and then from there, then the other teams are like, "Oh, we can't give up 3 each time down," so they don't put as much emphasis on Jaylen and Jayson, and then they can go to work inside. So it kinda works, it's a symbiotic relationship. I mean, a lot of people just look like, "Oh, it's this or this person or that person," but it all works hand to glove, and, I guess the only negative part is, like, sometimes the outside chatter and noise about this person's got to do this or whatever, but that interjects. sand into the wheels and gears. So, when they're moving the ball, like last night, they moved the ball, boom, boom, boom. Derrick got 4 wide open shots. He knocked them all down. Then that, necessitated them to stay on him per se and not leave him. And then Jayson got going. Al made a couple. Uh, so it kind of fed on itself. But then when they started to not make shots, not move the ball, and not get the same good looks that they had prior to, then the defense waned, and then Knicks were scoring almost every time down. The Celtics couldn't get into transition, and even when they didn't make a shot, the Knicks were getting the rebound. So um, each possession was, the Knicks were scoring, and it's kind of hard to win that way where the other team's always scoring each time down, because if you don't, then it just perpetuates, and then human nature takes in. So maybe people start pressing, trying to make a 6 point, 3 point pointer instead of just consistently. Let's get back to what we know how to do. Uh, let's run actions that'll give us the best shot available.
The actions part's interesting, right? Because social media is where I like to try and show that Joe Mazzulla is more than just a 3-point coach. Like, I think Joe gets a lot of really rough shake with the fan base for a lot of different reasons. I understand that there's a large section of the fan base that still would have preferred Ime Udoka there. I understand that Joe was kind of, from some people's perspective, certainly not mine, was dropped in a very easy situation, as we'd put it. I completely push back against that. I think that his ability to get everybody to buy in and to play a very certain way and sacrifice means that it wasn't easy. But I digress. When they're running action, they're clearly, Joe is doing more than asking them to just shoot threes.
Hmm.
My question is, though, there's a big narrative at the moment, especially over on Twitter, where Joe is being outcoached by Tibbs. And I
Hmm.
think that when you look at the way the amount of experience Tibbs has, just in general in the NBA, I don't think it's so much he's being out coached. I think that Tibbs is just reacting a slightly quicker just because he's got the experience and probably like he feels like an underdog. I don't know. So he's making adjustments a little bit quicker. So I guess I'm trying to get what your opinion is on that coaching battle that we're seeing right now, and whether or not Joe, you think that Joe can take another step in the next few games to help that, like to give the Celtics that little boost.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is people have already made an opinion on Joe, and they don't like him because the previous coach, who hasn't gone nearly as far as Joe, was their guy. I mean, that's human nature. If it's their guy, it doesn't matter. I mean, we literally watched the Indiana and the Cavs thing, and the Matherin thing. You could tell by who's speaking by the words coming out of their mouth. Like all the Indiana people were like, "Oh my God, what are they doing? There's nothing wrong here." They completely blew it out of proportion. But you take a swing at someone's chest, that's anybody could see that, but not the Indiana people. And then everybody kind of goes with what they are. But I mean, let's look, and it was even on last night, or some of the places I've heard where you know oh, Joe he wasn't even in the second, he's second or third row, and all this, but basically, let's look. He came in late without a staff. He had a bunch of players that they were good, but you still have to manipulate and work with egos and such, and what you can and can't do. So, and then to piggyback on that, this is Joe's third year. I mean, if you want to look at it in player perspective, Anthony Edwards is a really talented player, but he doesn't have as much years and experience as, say, Jayson Tatum. So when Minnesota struggles, because Anthony Edwards, he's getting there, but he's not to the point where Tatum is, where Tatum swings the ball and he gets off of it. He doesn't necessarily take it all on his shoulders. So we're dealing with Joe Mazzulla, who's in his third year. Tibbs was back when they won in 2008. So that's 17 years, 4 stops. Coaches get better the more they go. So I mean, yes, he did get a parachute getting this team as his first go round. Usually first go round coaches, you get the crap beat out of you because you're on a poor team. And you learn, well, this doesn't work, and you know what doesn't work. So Joe's going through that. He this team did very well, so he's now. I mean, if that play works, then you keep going. You don't know anything to change. And so, um, Tibbs has had problems. He didn't have problems, but he was been other places, whether it be Minnesota and all these other places that he's been. He's learned these different things. Um, Now, if you want to compare Joe to like Spolstra in his third year, after that, they're getting ready to fire him. So, I mean, and now, because Pat Riley stepped in and said no, Spolstra got to grow into what everybody thinks now is he's the best coach in the league. But, Greg Popovich, he just retired. A couple years in, they were getting ready to get rid of him because they didn't think it was going to work. So he's in his third year. It's like, why didn't he change? Well, he's not changing per se because what he's done has worked. And it may not work to what everybody wants. Oh, he didn't call it timeout here. He didn't call it timeout there. As far as I'm concerned, Joe can't win no matter what he does. Now, game 3, he called timeouts to stop runs. Social media, crickets. No one said anything. But, now they lose something and then boom, it's like, oh, he didn't do this. Oh, he didn't do that. Or, it's this, it's that. So he can't win. So I mean, I guess that's the crux that we bear. It's kind of like JT. He's done everything that you could ask for a player to do. He involves his teammates. He's a good player. He's willing to take the tough shots, but he still gets, all sorts of stuff heaped on him, which has nothing to do what's between the 4 lines.
How did you navigate that as a parent? Like, because obviously, even Derrick, like, Derrick is, in my opinion, a core member of this roster, and I think that everything he does has so much value. But there's always going to be a subset of fans or a subset of people that, again, he's not their guy, so they're gonna find an issue with what he does, or he misses a game-winning shot. The ball's fallen to him. There's 3 seconds left, and it just didn't fall the right way. As a parent, seeing that, especially somebody such as yourself that's online a bit more, how do you kind of process through that?
Um, you just kind of enjoy watching the game, going in that not everything's going to go the way you want it to go. So you just hang in there and you do what you can. So yeah, I trust in him and his decisions that he makes, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So a lot of times in the beginning of the year, in the fourth quarter, shot clock going down, he was making all these threes. Now that's not always going to happen, but I guess people look at it as like, well, it's the fourth quarter, he's going to make it every time, and that unfortunately is not going to be the case.
Can't be easy. It definitely can't be easy having seeing like, because everybody's got a take, right? Especially after a loss. This Going back to this game, obviously, that was just a question that popped into my head that I found really interesting. Going back to this series, obviously Tatum's. We're waiting on an update right now. Let me just check so that in case there's one while we're talking. No, there isn't. We're waiting on an update right now, but we're also looking ahead to, as we said, game 5. I think that for me, one of the questions I've got now is there's other injuries around the team, right? You've got Jaylen Brown and the bone bruise. You've got Kristaps Porzingis isn't playing very well. Sam Hauser is definitely dealing with some form of issue. Drew Holiday has been in and out of the rotation over the last few months. Multiple core guys, multiple really important pieces to a potential championship run. And I'd say we'd be very lucky if they're all at 80%, if maybe 85 if we're being generous. Now, I'm not a big believer in that. That's an excuse. If you lose a playoff series, you tip your cap to the other team and you don't discredit what they did by pointing at the issues you've got. But how much of that do you think is playing a factor that in the sense that this team's coming out really hot in the first quarter, second quarter, and then midway through the third, 3 times out of 4 now, that the wheels have started to fall off, and that really kind of points towards you've got a bunch of guys that are nowhere near 100% playing through some tough times.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some people aren't like they said only Sam was out. Sam was the only one on the injury report the last game. But like you said, Tatum had the bone bruise. Jalen's dealing with the stuff that he was dealing with with his leg. Porzingis is sick. Uh, Drew had mallet finger. So it's like this. It's a combination of things. Like you said, you play the game and you win. I mean, so it's kind of like people were like saying, "Oh, well, the Celtics last year, they had people had injuries and whatever, and they were taking shots." And so it's like, but Porzingis barely played last year. So and Indiana rolled all the way into the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and look at the laundry list of injuries that they avoided playing, whether it be Giannis or, Brunson got hurt in the Knicks thing. So, I mean, they happen, they do, but my thing was I think a lot of people saw like they're not on the injury report that they're mysteriously 100%. So the Porzingis, should he be on the injury report? Yeah, he's got the effects of whatever he's got going on. The bone bruise that Tatum had didn't mysteriously just go away in the last 2 weeks. So, you know, everyone's dealing with different things, and that's usually how it kind of works. So, like you said, they can play well in certain stretches, but then some maybe through the course of the game, um, the bone bruise gets into a certain place and it's a catch. So the shots that you were making earlier, they don't go, or shots that like Drew would have. I mean, sometimes he makes them, sometimes he doesn't. It's not set in stone. Could that have been a repercussion of the mallet finger? Because it depends, as when it rears its head that the injury takes precedent. Because I mean, you can feel good till you don't. And there's usually not a big blinking light saying, "Oh well, you're going to struggle here or now." If that were the case, then you could sub the person out and wait for the light to go back green. So it's like I said, they're down 3-1. Celtic teams in the past to come back from 3-1. Um, it's gonna be difficult, but they gotta all one, they have to, get emotionally back in after the Tatum injury. Two, they gotta find a way to, Joe's gotta work on coming up with lineups and rotations. He had the new rotation, which seemed to work in game 3 and part of game 4, was he had Derrick and Jayson play the first full quarter. I mean, when he started the series, Derrick would come out the 6 minute mark, Peyton would come in, and Drew played the whole way, and so he switched up there. So going into game 5, how do you do that? There's JB play the first quarter, and you try to move Derrick and Drew and Peyton in and out over there. I mean, last night, because of the way the game was going, Derek played the whole second half. So against is in good shape as he is, you know your shot and your legs are going to go if you don't steal some rest here and there. So, but they got to figure it out. They have the people and places to do. Like you said, sometimes the injuries go. It could be a good day tomorrow. Tomorrow where everybody is in a row. Now, can they get 5, 6 days of consecutive good days to come back from 3-1? I don't know, but the main thing is to get to game win game 5 and get to go back to New York.
That's what it's going to be. One game at a time and hope for the best. I do think there is a lot of downside to the amount of minutes that some guys are having to play, like Derrick playing the whole second half. And we'll see that downside if they keep progressing, because obviously those minutes pile up over time. But for right now, you need to do what you need to do, right? No Jayson Tatum. You're coming into a win or go home type of game. You came into the season looking to defend the championship, and situations have put you in a position where now you might be out in the second round. A lot of talk happening about what could or could not happen this summer. I think the Celtics will definitely want to try and give Tatum that, we won one for you type of mentalities, that they're going to come in there and try and win one for JT. Whether or not they can win the series, I'm still out on that. I think that, if you lose 3 or 4, then being asked to go 3-0 the next 3 games, that's really difficult. Even if you are the better team, there's obviously mitigating circumstances. So just before I let you out of here, I know we said around 20 minutes. I just wanted to get your prediction. Like, do you see the Celtics coming back and winning in 7, or do you feel like it's going to go to 7? They're going to fall short. Do you have a prediction at all?
When they played Miami and they were down 3-0, until they didn't make it, they didn't make it. So they got all the way there, and then, um, you know, kind of things went haywire in the first minute. So, I mean, or else they could have come back from 3-0. 3-1 is, 3-1 is basically we won the fourth game in Miami and it was 3-1, and you go from there. So until they beat the Celtics 4 times, there's still a chance. I mean, I know not a lot of people say that or whatever, but you know if you love the team, you love the team in good and bad, and you stick with them in good and bad until there is none. And you know and whatever happens after the season happens after the season. But it kind of boggled my mind that a month ago we were having this discussion because Shams put out a tweet, which people already talked about it clearly, after Derek and Sam signed their contracts. Oh, how are we going to be able to do that? That should have been it then. But then, like right before the playoffs, Shams wants to get his pound of flesh and he wants to bring it up. Nothing's changed. I mean, everything is the way it was before. So now you bring it up and everybody goes, "Oh, what is this?" But I guess that's for another day. But it's like everybody's gonna go through it. I mean, why don't we talk now about OKC? They've got that thing. Minnesota did it last year. Denver here in Colorado, they've got it. There's a lot of teams that have it. And, some of the teams have been able to negotiate and be somewhat more positive on the winning side. And then you have teams like Phoenix that has the same problem and they're nowhere near the top of the board. So, um, yeah, you can only control what you can control. And, everybody always, talks highly of Brad, and Brad will do what he has to do to give us the best chance of, staying competitive and then go from there.
With that, Richard, I just want to say thank you for jumping on with me, man. It's been
Oh,
fun
no
chopping it
problem.
up.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say I want Celtics in 7, but I'm also gonna say I'm gonna take it a game at a time, the same way I think everybody should. With that, everybody make sure if you're over on Blue Sky, show Richard some love, man. I think that you missed very much. You're very missed on Twitter, but it's a cesspool, so I completely get why you made the jump.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.